Good morning. Thank you for joining us here today. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered today on the traditional territory of the signatories of Treaty 6 and 7, and also to acknowledge the Métis people of Alberta. Today I'm joined by Trent Johnson, who has extensive experience in the tech sector. Trent's the founder and CEO of LiveWeb. He's on the board of Intergen, where they fund investments in leading early stage scalable tech. And he served as Associate Director of Creative Destruction Lab Rockies at the Haskayne School of Business at the U of C. Our economy is in the midst of a generational shift brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, a crash in oil prices, and an energy transformation that's changing how we power our economy. These challenges have highlighted the need to build a more resilient and diversified economy. Globally, the tech sector saw strong growth during the COVID-19 pandemic, proving it can be an economic driver and create jobs. But we need to set the right conditions in order to compete in this highly competitive global market. The current government has set a goal of Alberta becoming a leader in tech investment in the country, but they've actually cut several programs designed to support our tech sector. As a result, we're losing ground to other provinces. If we're going to set ourselves apart from other jurisdictions and become a leader, it will take bold and creative ideas. So today, I'm excited to introduce a bill that will diversify our economy by attracting investment and growing our tech sector. First, the bill establishes the Technology Innovation Advisory Council. This council will provide advice and research to the Minister on Innovation and Technology sector, as well as support cross-government initiatives related to innovation. And second, the bill establishes the Alberta Technology Venture Capital Fund. The Venture Fund will invite all Albertans to invest in Alberta's future. The fund will directly invest in the growth of Alberta's tech and AI sectors and exclusively support early-stage companies, startups, and scale-ups. The fund would help Alberta build a world-class innovation environment by providing capital to founders, startups, and companies looking to scale that struggle to secure risk capital. And investing in the fund would provide Albertans the opportunity to earn returns themselves, to support economic growth, diversification, and the creation of good jobs, and the long-term economic well-being of the province. This concept isn't new. In fact, Albertans have a long history of directly investing in sectors and projects that help secure the future of our economy. And history tells us when Albertans are given the opportunity to bet on themselves, great things are possible. This venture fund is inspired by examples in Alberta's history, such as Premier Ernest Manning's Great Canadian Oil Sands project in the 1960s, which attracted investments of $1,500, which is approximately $13,000 in today's dollars, from roughly 100,000 Albertans. These investments represented an important step forward in the early success of Alberta's oil sands and laid the groundwork for companies like Suncor to become leading energy companies that they are today. And just like the Alberta Investor Tax Credit and the Digital Media Tax Credit that were implemented by our government but cancelled by the UCP, the Venture Fund is an idea that comes from industry and advocates like Trent. Now I'll turn it over to Trent to say a few words.
Thanks, Deron. Genuinely exciting. Congratulations, and thank you for the introduction. I'm here today in support of this important bill and work. I'm an economist by education, and I'm seeing firsthand every day how success in this new digital economy is the key driver of sustainable growth and job and wealth creation and our collective quality of life. Now, we've been seeing news lately in Alberta about the growth and success of our Alberta's tech sector, and we certainly have entrepreneurs, companies, and progress worthy of celebration. But Alberta continues to fall behind in the new digital economy. The current Canadian Venture Capital Association report reveals that although we saw $106 million more in capital investment in 2021 than 2020, We actually dropped from over 10% of total investments in Canada to less than 4%. We're not even keeping up with our Canadian peer provinces, let alone the rest of the world. This is why initiatives like this bill are so valuable and critical for Albertans. An Alberta Technology Venture Fund will not only create capital formation to accelerate creation and growth of new economy businesses, it will also provide Albertans with a unique opportunity to directly invest and participate in a top-performing asset class, venture capital. It's clear the new digital economy is where the most jobs, value, and wealth creation and sustainable growth will occur for decades to come. Initiatives like this legislation we're seeing today help position Alberta to compete and succeed in the new 21st century global economy. Congratulations, Deron, and your party on this important initiative. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate, and I look forward to working with you in support of this critically important, valuable work.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Trent. Appreciate you being here and for your advocacy. Trent, as I mentioned, among many others across the province, have been putting forward ideas like this one, and we're excited to be tabling a bill this afternoon. Happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you, Deron, and thank you, Trent. We'll now go to questions. Just a reminder for those joining us on the phones to use the star 9 function, and for those joining us on Zoom to use the raise hand function to get into the question queue. Our first question comes from Catherine Gurguski, Alberta Today. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thanks for taking my question. In the House, when this is brought up, the minister has said that this has been a record year for venture capital investments and it's continuing to grow. But I think, as Trent mentioned, the proportion of capital investment is smaller in Alberta. What is success then? What are you hoping? What does it mean for Alberta to be leading in this sphere?
Yeah, great question. So, you know, the government, the current government has said that they want Alberta to be a leader in venture capital investment by 2030. As Trent pointed out, we've grown, but our growth is actually much slower than other jurisdictions. And, you know, the industry has said to me and to us, if we want to be leaders, we need to take significant, bold action. This venture fund concept is one that is unique, doesn't currently exist in the country. But the ability and the opportunity to allow Albertans to invest directly in our own companies, in our own backyard, would be a significant injection. And quite frankly, we could see that $500 million investment easily double with the deployment of this fund.
Do you have a follow-up, Catherine?
Yeah, and you mentioned this fund is a unique initiative. It's not in other provinces. So why do you think Alberta is lagging in investment?
Well, I think there was a number of tools that we brought forward when we were government, which again came from the private sector. And I can tell you my frustration with the current government's framing of the investor tax credit or the digital media tax credit, and the reason that they wouldn't and won't reintroduce is because it came in under the NDP. When you talk to industry and folks like Trent, they'll tell you these are ideas that came from industry. No political party owns them. And their frustration is that the current government is playing politics with these valuable tools that we're working, that we're creating jobs, that we're helping our companies to grow at a much faster pace. And so, you know, we've heard from companies across sectors throughout the province who are in desperate need of accessing capital. And this is a very innovative way for Albertans to help our own companies grow. And this type of injection, we believe, will catapult Alberta ahead and position us to be a leader in come 2030. Trent, do you want to comment on this as well?
Thank you. Yeah, as a follow-on, Deron, I know you were thinking specifically of the Alberta Investor Tax Credit. And Catherine, when we look at the experience of other provinces, and BC as our closest neighbor is a great example, they've had a technology investor tax credit for over the past 2 decades, and it has helped BC investors participate in the tech sector. And I believe that without incentives like those to help Alberta money, Alberta investment capital, of which there's an incredible amount of here, participate in a sector that they're not as experienced in investing in. Albertans have deep experience investing in our energy sector, but are newer to investments in scalable growth tech opportunities. So legislation like we've had in Ontario and BC and a number of other provinces for decades to encourage and de-risk investment in a new sector has resulted in BC, for example, employs more people in technology than forestry, mining, and energy combined, at wages about 65% higher on average than those industries. So our peer provinces, BC, Ontario, and Quebec in particular, have turned the corner into the new tech economy, and we're still lagging in doing that in Alberta. That's why I'm here today, to support this kind of legislation, because it's very effective in accelerating investment and growth.
Okay, thank you, Trent. We'll go to our next question. Lisa Johnson at the Edmonton Journal. Your line is open.
Hi, sorry, forgot to unmute myself there. Deron, I'm just wondering, like, comparing this to the proposal that you guys put forward last February, I'm wondering what kind of feedback. I mean, at the time, Minister Schweitzer said he'd look forward to discussing it with you. Have you had any conversations with the minister about this idea? Do you think he'd be more amenable to this idea, given the fact that there's no $200 million seed funding price tag this time around?
Yeah, you know, my hope is that the government will seriously consider this bill. Again, we've tried to put forward a proposal that is to the benefit of all Albertans, and to really drive growth and economic diversification and jobs. And that's why, you know, it's so important that folks like Trent, who know this space very, very well, are lending their voices to this bill, because they understand the opportunity that exists. And quite frankly, you know, I was chatting with a venture capitalist this morning about the bill, who said to me, Deron, this bill is a no-brainer. In fact, we should have done this a long time ago, to unleash capital and allow Albertans to participate in our future economy and in Alberta's future. Is significant, and you know, I know that this type of fund would turn heads across the country and globally, as far as a very unique initiative that Alberta's undertaking. And so, you know, whether it was you know, the government that couldn't get their head around the couple $100 million seed funding, you know, I guess we'll find out very soon if the government votes in favor of this bill. But my request is for industry to help amplify this conversation. Let's get Albertans talking about real ways that they can help grow the economy and invest in companies in our own backyard. And you know, I think we're going to hear from, as we've been hearing from a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of companies, that are trying to access capital, that, hey, here is an incredible tool that we all need to support, and the government needs to set aside their partisan lens and look at supporting a good idea, and let's really catapult Alberta. Trent, do you want to comment as well?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on those points, Deron. This would position Alberta with a kind of a unique global innovation in venture capital funding. And this level of venture capital, 500 million, hopefully moving toward our initial $1 billion Alberta Venture Fund, not only helps fund Alberta entrepreneurs building in the new economy, but it would attract global entrepreneurs who would come here to take advantage of that kind of venture capital in the province. And then as you know, I've been working on this for over a decade. And one of the things that strikes me as most important is, as Albertans increasingly participate in investing in these fabulous sustainable growth, wealth creating new technology companies, we become increasingly literate and capable of investing and growing businesses in our own province. So it's a virtuous circle. It's a self-perpetuating initiative that we can build a fabulous future on. So it's really exciting for me to see.
Thank you, Trent. Lisa, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, just comparing these numbers. I know, Deron, you've compared these CBCA numbers, the investment capital numbers across provinces. And I'm wondering if you can just flesh that out a little bit more, because, like, obviously Ontario, British Columbia, and Quebec saw more investment, but they have bigger populations than Alberta. So how can you better characterize the kind of how Alberta is lagging behind? And Trent, if you want to expand on that too, please.
Yeah, and if anything, I mean, I'm going to borrow Trent's words from earlier, because I think he characterized it really well, that although we saw an increase in growth, when we look at our share of investment, capital investment across the country, Alberta's share is declining. And so, yes, those other provinces have a higher population. But I mean, when you look at our economies, Alberta's economy is bigger than BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba combined. And so, there is the wealth that's here and potential capital to be invested, but tools like this venture fund, along with our previous tax credits, will help and would help unlock those funds and get them working for and with Alberta companies. But Trent, do you want to comment on this?
I think my follow-on would be that if you review the most recent Canadian Venture Capital Association report, it clearly shows that although the digital economy is the biggest area of growth in the country, Alberta is not participating at the speed at which the other leading tech provinces are, and it is adjusted for population. But I think more importantly, I've worked extensively in Silicon Valley and Boston with leading global tech companies and venture capital groups, and I can tell you unequivocally that Alberta talent and Alberta investors and Albertans are more than capable of competing directly with capital formation and growth companies in those other jurisdictions, Silicon Valley, Asia, Europe, and we haven't stepped up to do that yet. But let's not just benchmark ourselves against our Canadian provinces. we can go out and compete with the best in the world. And we've seen over the last couple of years, as some of our early stage success stories get the wind in their sails and begin to get traction and get access to capital and grow, we're seeing tremendous success stories, a few that come to mind quickly for me, and I'll miss so many, but when we look at the Benevides and the Adibotics, the venture fund I work with is invested today in Stellar Algo, which is a digital sports fan loyalty platform. We're invested in Athenian, which is leading world-class digitization of the legal practice. And Albertans should be thinking about establishing our benchmarks for capital formation investment and technology growth companies against the rest of the world, not this myopic, simple Canadian vision.
We will do one last pass for questions for those on the phone. Just a reminder for those on the phone line to use *9, and for those on Zoom to use raise hand to get into the question queue. And with no further questions, we will wrap today. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much, and happy St. Patrick's Day.